sustainable development, the SDGs and the urban SDGs in particular are not a short-term miracle that have appeared from nowhere. They have emerged from nearly a century of debate, contest, experimentation, failure and success. This debate has brought together multiple actors and stakeholders from the local, provincial, national, regional to the global and created 17 goals and 169 targets within the SDGs. But why are there 17 goals? The formation of the SDGs was deeply influenced by the experience on the MDGs. The MDGs demonstrated the value of clear, quantified, limited sets of goals. They highlighted the importance of partnerships to achieve all these goals. They proved the value of common metrics, global indicators that are achieved through local and national processes. At the same time, the MDGs showed the shortcomings of a top-down, rather insular process of designing goals and the missed opportunities of ignoring large sectors and areas of global action like cities. The design of the SDGs was spearheaded by the UN Secretary General, informed first by a grassroots consultation through The World We Want, managed and solicited by the UN, but bringing in voices of over 1 million people from all backgrounds, communities, and nationalities. A high-level panel of eminent persons then brought together a global policy consensus on the SDGs. Once the technical priorities were determined, the process was handed over to the member nations at the United Nations Open Working Group, which forged the political consensus and the negotiations needed to affect priorities of 193 countries. No mean feat, but one achieved by painstaking discussion, debate, and negotiation. As urbanization and cities have become more important in the economic, social, and political life of the world, the urban sector and its institutions have struggled through multilateral processes. Until relatively recently, the sector was fractured around narrow geographical, thematic, and institutional themes and mandates. Recognizing the imperative role of cities and settlements in development, the global urban community has come together over the last few years to present a coherent political front, clear arguments, and a commitment towards action and implementation. This has happened because cities are now being seen not as problems, but as sites of opportunity and effective implementation. To understand this, it may be useful to examine what happened on the morning of 7th January 2014 on the floor of the United Nations, when a debate took place on the value of sustainable cities in global development. Taking part in that debate were representatives of UN member countries, the Global Campaign for an Urban SDG, and UN officials. A few short clips from that day.
We have a set of challenges in the developing world, which is the challenges that we have been talking during those days, yesterday and today. But also in the developed world, we need to change our cities. We need to retrofit our cities. And this is why also something that should be, if it's the case, in the targets, because we know that we cannot go on with the level of greenhouse emissions that we have in the developed cities.
But eventually, if you have to manage such large and complex and interdependent systems, you do have to transfer both the authority and the ability to respond to the local level, because that's how innovation will actually function.
So if these two aspects are true, and if this is as multidimensional, the question we would ask is, how could you address this in a goal framework, in the understanding that there probably will not be an SDG on transport. We would not support it for the simple reason that everybody wants something, an SDG on, and we're going to end up with about 327 SDGs at my last count, including things like nuclear waste, breast milk, diarrhea, I've heard as a candidate. The list is endless.
So you can imagine how complex and challenging this is. The solution, of course, will not come from the co-chairs. The solution will come from the membership. That's one way of getting under from that particular challenge.
We just saw an example of the existential debate on the value of the city's goal. It's actually quite remarkable that the SDGs include Goal 11.